What's going on there, folks? Good Sunday evening. It is November 15th, 2020, 8:05 p.m. West Coast time here in California, and taking a look at the latest earthquake here on the Earthquake 3D globe. Shows a 2.5 way up into deep Alaska up there. Haven't seen a whole lot of we haven't seen a whole lot of earthquake activity in the northern part of Alaska for a while. But that is where this latest earthquake on the globe is taking place. Live stream went down. Just an update real quick. Live stream went down due to my computer. That was specifically definitely my fault that time. Windows 10, whatever it is now, decided to do an update outside of my busy time hours. For whatever reason, normally it won't do an update unless specifically I tell it to, or I turn off, or I turn back on the update. So it is what it is. I lost the stream, but we are back now. The live view from Yellowstone National Park is down still, so they're having some type of technical difficulties with their camera that's up there in the park. So unfortunately, I'm continuously checking it. We'll see once it gets back up and going. I'll definitely add it back to the live stream, but for now, I am unable to. Pretty good sized earthquake out there around the Philippines Islands area, 6.1. You can see that blue circle there striking right on the island out there. Well, not a major quake, but it definitely a large quake there, 42 kilometers below surface. Quite a few folks feeling it. Historical activity within the region shows, well, I don't have to explain this because there's definitely a huge amount of earthquakes that have taken place out there historically. So not an oddball earthquake at all, just a common occurrence out there in the Philippine Trench area. Backing out of the map here a little bit, you can see that's pretty much the only major earthquake activity out there along the Pacific Ring of Fire. Some smaller activity around the volcano islands of Japan, some deeper movement in that area. But other than that, relatively quiet all throughout the Fiji Islands area and down through the New Zealand region. Pretty quiet, really quiet, actually. And this is the all magnitudes quake over the last 24 hours. All magnitudes map, I should say. What do we got going on out here along the West Coast, folks? Southern California remains relatively quiet. No swarming, no increase in activity. Nevada is still seeing an average of earthquake activity. But Idaho, on the other hand, seeing a ramp up of some pretty good sized earthquakes up here. You can see this, and I'm sure there's quite a bit more than what's taking place here. Even though this is the all magnitudes from the USGS, I don't think they're including every single earthquake out there. There's just, I believe there's a lot more. And I'm having some issues getting a hold of any type of seismograph station within this region. But we'll go with the USGS map for now. You can see a handful of quakes. They had a pretty good size one, a 4.1 earlier today. A couple mid-3s, quite a few 2s in there as well, and many unmentioned ones, I'm sure, taking place out there in Idaho. And the depth of these quakes roughly averaging out about 10 kilometers below the surface there. You can see the depth here along the side. Could potentially be default as far as the level goes, as far as, below the surface. But nonetheless, some increase in activity out there in Idaho. This also showed up strongly, very strongly, on the Yellowstone National Park seismograph stations here. Even over here towards the eastern side of the park, picked up that 4.1. Over there in Idaho, you can see that 4.1 right here. A good distance away from Yellowstone National Park, but hold on, let's see here. But definitely showing up throughout the majority of the seismograph stations there. Kind of looks like it's localized quakes, but not so much. These right here, these specific little spikes of an earthquake there, very localized here around this station. But these drawn out earthquakes here, they're kind of wavy if you will. Definitely showing up strongly, but these are not localized earthquakes, but more or less the Idaho quakes taking place out there. Somebody mentioned about Idaho playing a major part in the Yellowstone National, or the Yellowstone activity, I should say. And I believe they are correct. I mean, Yellowstone National Park has not been, or at least Yellowstone supervolcano has not been in that specific location its entirety. In its entirety, North American plate has moved over this so-called hot spot over millions of years to where it's at now here in northwestern Wyoming. But if you take a look at the track, and I've been through here when I went up to Yellowstone earlier this year, this was all flat land out here. It's pretty interesting with mountains, surrounding the region. But I thought, man, just driving out here where a supervolcano used to be over the millions of years throughout Idaho and into parts of Nevada and Oregon over here, 16.1 million years ago. This here is the location of the Yellowstone hotspot. Numbers indicate the time of the eruption in millions of years ago. So, yeah, take a look at that. The path right here, you can see it carved out as the North American plate made its way over this hotspot into, and of course, the further back you go, the millions of years you go back, the less obvious it looks due to, well, plate tectonics, the uplifting of mountains, and general, weather, climate, erosion, and stuff like that is what I'm looking for. So less obvious as you go back here, but you can definitely see that path straight up through Idaho. So, how does this play a part in the earthquake activity in Idaho? I guess it potentially could. I do believe there may be some linkage there to the older paths that it may have taken. But let's go up here real quick. But this activity specifically, I need to go back a little bit here because this is similar to what's going on in Nevada. We've seen just a swarm of quakes in Nevada and Idaho throughout this year, and it's all got to do with some earlier earthquake activity earlier this year, and larger magnitude, I should say. I can't remember the exact magnitude within this region that struck earlier this year, but I'm wanting to say around a 6.0. I can't remember, folks, and unfortunately I didn't pull it up. I could, but I don't want to get so sidetracked. But this activity is taking place along close to the Sawtooth Fault system, where the potential for a major quake around the 7.0 magnitude is likely, and it's got its history along here, along the Sawtooth Fault. You can see that red line right there indicating that specific fault, even though it's not. I mean, we're looking at about 5 miles from there, but it just goes to show you the amount of pressure and the dynamics of the plate tectonics and the mountain ranges out here, and Yellowstone in play as well. I mean, it's on a map it just looks like Idaho, Montana, Washington, Oregon, but there is so much dynamics below here and in history in this region here. And I can't say specifically what's going to happen, but far as like the specific hotspot, the current hotspot, Yellowstone hotspot, I believe does not play a major part in it. I believe maybe some of the older hotspots is what's kind of potentially playing a part in it, but it's really hard to say. I don't believe it's any type of magma movement, anything major down below. These are pretty shallow quakes, but throughout history, that hotspot has worked its way up here into this region. where it's at right now in northwest Yellowstone. So just kind of keep an eye on it, folks. Just have to see what Mother Nature wants to do within that activity right there. Let's see here. Texas once again. There's that 3.5 near Snyder, Texas. Haven't seen really too much earthquake activity following that. Some regional quakes up here around Helena and up into parts of Montana there. Of course, all these mountain ranges up here around the Bitterroot Mountains. On a global scale here, this activity is kind of brushing up against or not global, I should say, a regional scale, brushing up against the old craton, the North American craton out here, not crayon, but the craton area, kind of an area outlined to where the mouse is at. Relatively stable tectonic movement here, while everything else is either shoving up against it or moving around it. But this region right around here, which includes Denver, parts of Yellowstone, or parts of Wyoming, dipping down into this area right here, is the old North American craton. See if I can bring it up here. Real quick to show you guys. It's been a while since I've shown that here. There's a lot of maps, quite a few maps up here, folks. I mean, there's just so many. This gives you a little general view of the area that I'm talking about. Not going to bring up that name there from YouTube. He's got a little pressure point here with these arrows, talking about how pressure builds up along this region here of the North American craton area. And once again, continental crust that has remained relatively stable for the past 600 million years. So not a whole lot of movement within this brown area, while areas around it move or brush up against it or go around it. And that's kind of what we're seeing there in the let's see, where to go. The Montana region there, once you see the 2.5, or the all magnitudes, I should say, right around this region here. And a lot of these quakes taking place out here in Texas, obvious fracking, oil rigs and whatnot. You start sucking stuff out of the ground, maybe potentially injecting it with well water and all sorts of stuff. It does stuff to the land and the earth underneath it. So we see these quakes taking place. But man, I forgot where I was going with that. Let's see what else we got to cover here, folks. Alaska, like I said, some activity up here, well to the north, way up here. Well, I've never been up there. The furthest I've been up north is around Fairbanks up here. Flew into Anchorage a couple years ago and drove from Anchorage up to Fairbanks. Beautiful area, man. And that drive, oh my gosh. I would love to do that again. Beautiful area up there. But this new earthquake activity taking place around the, looks like, what is that, the Purcell Mountains? Once again, seeing earthquake activity in the mountains area. Not a surprise. 0 kilometers below the surface, according to the USGS. Let's take a look at the last 30 days or so of 2.5 and above. You can see some sporadic activity in that region. So, but unlike the areas to the south here along the Pacific Plate, in the subducting area right here, where we see the majority of the quakes, relatively quiet here in this specific area. So, just tonight, it's one of those nights where we want to see, we're seeing a little bit of action, I suppose. But other than that, folks, pretty quiet. Let's check out South America real quick. Inland into the Chile-Argentina border area, we're seeing some earthquake activity. A lot of times we'll see some movement around the Peru-Chile trench area along that subducting zone. But today, over the last 24 hours, inland, and if you look at the majority of these 4 quakes that are on the map, these are some deep earthquakes taking place well down there in the subducting area. Almost, well, there's one right there, 214 kilometers below the surface, while these are well above 100, well below the surface there. So some deep movement going on there in South America. As far as the tremor activity goes there, quieting down, only 71 epicenters of tremor along the Pacific Northwest into Vancouver Island area. A little bit more activity in northern Cal, still within the, just outside of Sacramento Valley there, stretching into the Trinity Mountain Wilderness region. But things quieting down along the Cascadia subduction zone. Let's see, folks. I'm going to, like I say, I'm going to keep an eye on stuff. As far as, what do we got there? The latest quake, 2.5 up there in Idaho. See that 4.1 there in the larger circle. And, of course, the deeper movement down there in South America. I will continuously watch the Yellowstone webcam for them restarting it. Like I said, once again, when it comes up, I will bring it back to the live stream. But for now, I kind of have to, maneuver some stuff around, keep the screen somewhat moving. Otherwise, it's just pretty much a frozen screen on Yellowstone, so don't want to have that. I'm not for sure what's going on with this other map here, or this other screen. Hold on a second here. There we go. So yeah, anyway, folks, enough of the rambling. I'm going to call it a night. It is Sunday night. Tomorrow's a new day. And, man, I just feel like I'm getting old. I feel... it's not good. Today it just feels like I'm dragging. Not good. All the fun part of living life and getting older. That's not a good thing, let me tell you. Kind of wish I was back in my 20s, right? Early years, I think the best time of my life was probably about 20 or so, I think. If I could go back then, I definitely would. That'd be some fun stuff. Rambling. I'm a rambling man. Isn't that a country song? Okay. Good night, folks. Have a good night. Stay safe out there. And always, like I say, be prepared. You never know where these earthquakes are going to take place. Oh, that's kind of strange right there. And we'll chat you guys tomorrow sometime. Peace out.